Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of an experiment called Life with Alex McKenzie. That's me. As always, this episode is brought to you by Punchline Nutrition. I take NeuroBoost every day before I do this podcast, before I do my writing, before I go on stage to make sure that my brain is smart and working good. And what we always say about NeuroBoost is we don't guarantee it'll make you smart, but we guarantee it will make you less dumb. So go and take NeuroBoost. You're going to love it. Punchline Nutrition, and use the code ATJ to save yourself 25% on that. As well as that, we also have the Never Been Better tour. So my new stand-up comedy tour is now live. Tickets are on sale. Go to alextelljokes.com/live shows. Grab yourself some tickets, and can't wait to see you guys. And today we have a very special guest. I'm very excited to have this lady here with us. So she is a award-winning author. She is a keynote speaker, and I believe was an inspirer of hope. Please welcome to the podcast, Amy Weendland Daughters, everybody. Hello, Amy.
Hello, Alex. Thank you for having me on. I'm super excited.
Oh, I'm very excited to have you on here. It's very fun. I think it's everything that you do is right up my alley. I really like do you call it? Spreader of hope? Is that it?
Right. And you're the happiness cheerleader. So I feel like this
I
is the great, unifying of the messages. So,
Yeah. Yeah. How did you get into wanting to be a positive influence? Was that where it started, or were you trying to,
well,
what was the,
that part of when I started calling myself the spreader of hope, that I came upon, that whole story by accident. I was just minding my own business. I think I've always been a positive person.
right,
I, like you, use humor. I'm not a stand-up comedian, but I use humor in everything I do. It's like a
right.
coping mechanism. Plus, I think it's a gift to the world, but the world might not want it, but I'm giving it.
Yeah.
And but the whole spreader of the hope thing, I just came on accident. I was writing, just doing my regular thing, and then I get on Facebook one day, and there's this girl who I worked at a summer camp with 30 years ago. Had zero contact with her for 30 years, but we were both loud, pretty much obnoxious, and thought we were funny. So we
Yeah.
connected. Like 6 weeks of me and her like taking over the camp with our shenanigans, and then
Yeah.
no contact for 30 years. So I'm on Facebook. I type her name in. Voila, there she is. And so it doesn't really mean anything. So I friend her. She accepts. I don't know if she remembers me. And I go and look at her life really quickly. And she's got 5 kids. Right away, she overachieved. She got 4 girls and 1 boy. And I'm like, wow,
Yeah.
I'm an amateur at this. And right away, I found out that the youngest kid is the only boy, and he's got cancer. And
Oh no.
he's at the St. Jude Hospital, Children's Hospital in Memphis, Tennessee, which means it's serious. So I
Right.
kind of follow along with the story. And as a human being, as a mom, I was like, this is terrible. But I said nothing. I didn't message her. I didn't like any of her posts. I didn't comment because I felt that was disingenuous. I didn't know the kid. I mean, I hadn't talked to her in decades. And here's this
Right.
woman fighting with her kid. I mean, to get, for him to survive. And
Right.
so he goes back home, then he goes back to the hospital. The cancer comes back. And one morning, like she posts that, they go back, it's terrible. And I sit down at my desk and it's like a lightning bolt hit me right in the head. And I'm like, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to start sending them handwritten notes to the Ronald McDonald House where they're staying. I have still had no contact with this woman in 35 years. I've never met the kid, and I hadn't
Yeah.
written anyone a note in or a letter in 30 years. So it's not like I came into this going spinning around a field of wheat saying, "Let's do something meaningful in a dress." I was like wearing yoga pants and being like,
Yeah.
"What's up?"
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so I wasn't the letter writing lady, but I start writing these 2 letters and notes for about 10 to 12 weeks. It's like, hey, thinking about you, praying for you. I hope, we're supporting you from afar. I don't even know if she remembers me. And so I
Right.
knew it was
And so
crazy,
were you
but
writing these letters? So when you say 10 to 12 weeks you were writing them? And
every
it was
week.
like every week you would send them a handwritten letter.
Right. And I had
And
a writing schedule at the time. So I wrote articles about American college football. So I just put them on
right.
the schedule. They were my Sunday for Monday. I'd write the thing on Sunday, and I'd mail it on Monday. And I
And were
felt
you getting
so no
replies back at this
responses.
point? No responses. Okay.
But I felt so compelled to do it. Like this level, this story is me being irrational at different levels. Like the whole story is about that. But somehow the universe, or whatever you want to gauge a higher power just compelled me to keep going. And I have a little bit of a component. I had a parent, my father was like an engineer, but an out of the box thinker. And his example
Right.
always like, let's go for it. So I just was like, let's go for it. But I felt so like I had something else really driving me to do this. And so I write them the letters for 10 to 12 weeks, and then absolute devastation happens. The kid doesn't make
R-
it.
Right.
And there's no good words for it and has nothing to do in the world with me. I'm just the other girl, a girl on the other side of the mailbox. But still, I sent a condolence card and then I was like, what do I do? And I was like, mini lightning bolt, you need to keep writing her. And
Right.
this is when it gets crazier because I'm like, I don't know. She lives in Louisiana, I think,
Yeah.
because this is Facebook. I don't really know. Like, I can't message her and say, hey, what's your address? Because she just lost her kid. You know, it's the worst
Right.
thing that could happen to any of us. And so instead, I just stalked her husband, found his law office address, and I started sending the letters there because that makes a lot of sense, Alex, you know? And
Yeah.
so I do that all the while knowing it. Like I kept her on my writing schedule, and the
And
letters got
what were the content of the letters?
well, this is what happened. It started getting longer because there's only so many times you can say I'm thinking about you and I'm sorry, and that sucks, you
Right.
know. And I wasn't going to talk about grief or losing a loved one because that seemed totally like BS, you know, like that's I mean, you just lost your kid. So I just started writing about my life. Like, here's what I do. Here's my kids. Here's where I live. And it just
Yeah.
they got longer just because I was just trying to say something. And then so about 4 months, 5 months into that, I haven't heard from her. And I'm like, every week I'm like, oh, this is ridiculous. You've got to stop. You're crazy. And then on my birthday, I go out to my mailbox. You know, nobody mails you anything. On
Right.
top of the mail is a 10-page letter from this woman, handwritten. And she wrote me back and she talks about her grief. She talks about her kids. And at the end of the letter, she's like, you know, I didn't know I was going to say any of that, but I feel better for saying it. And so
Right.
this kicks off 2 years of me and this woman who I don't know exchanging letters weekly in the U.S. mail.
Yeah.
2 years. We don't text, we don't email. And it created this free space. Like, I don't know when she's reading what I wrote. She doesn't know when I'm reading what she wrote. And we would say stuff. We trusted each other. We'd say stupid stuff like, you know, I've never told anybody this before, but I know I can trust you, like literal stranger.
Right.
But
Yeah,
there's
yeah.
this intimacy because you're writing. She's not sitting in front of me. I'm not sitting for her. You're not looking for a response. It's non-intrusive. It's very
Yeah, because
tact.
the writing for sure, like, because anytime during a conversation, like even through Zoom, like you and I talking right now, you're reading each other's facial expressions, you're
Right,
seeing how they're reacting, you're like, ooh, do they think I'm weird? Do they not? Like,
right.
yeah, like so then when you're doing a handwritten letter though, I find I write every morning as well. Like I journal every morning and then write stand up, but yeah, you can connect to your heart so much better. Like I find you just write freely. The thing that helped my journaling, honestly, was thinking nobody is going to read this letter.
That's exactly it. And it's so
That was the
integral.
thing that fixed my journaling. Yeah.
And there's science to that though. You know, that your brain when you type things, and there's nothing wrong with instantaneous communication. That would be wrong. There's nothing wrong with social media. I think that's too extreme of a view. But when you're typing,
Right.
it's almost like, you know, it's like motor memory, like you're just doing that. But when you're forming letters, you're using your entire brain. You're using and then and
Yeah.
you know, you've got to use your it's a more thoughtful process. And I mean, there's studies that show there's 20% more emotional clarity and stress reduction when you handwrite something, a note or a journal versus typing it out. So there's actual science to
Well,
what you've
uh,
experienced.
I think my therapist explained it to me one time. She called it bilateral stimulation. So she said two things that kind of do it. Actually, walking, going for a walk does it, but then also like journaling does it. But it gets, like you're saying, your whole brain. It gets your left and your right brain talking to each other. And so then you can create a much more composed thought rather than just being completely emotional or completely logistical. You know, you'd like gets the whole brain to work together and then you can like rationalize what is the best way to move forward with a
Right. And then
thought.
you really think about what you're saying, and then you don't feel, I felt this freedom, and I can speak for her now too, this freedom to say whatever I wanted to because I wasn't seeing a reaction. And then there
Right.
was no I had no expectation of a response because, like, who knew when she was reading it or if she was reading it? So it was a little bit like journaling. But the other element that was so great was we had no idea how the other person voted. We had no idea what they believed in. We had no idea what their socioeconomic level is. We had no
Right.
idea about any of that.
I
We
mean,
just
other
knew.
than you're mailing to a law firm.
Right, right.
So
No, so she had no, you're exactly right. I could assume she lived like
I
they
know,
had a
I'm just
that,
kidding.
no, that's exactly right. No one's ever
Yeah,
said
yeah.
that to me before, but we didn't there was no that
I know
dividing
what you
stuff
mean.
didn't even come up.
Yes. Yeah,
We
no
just
religion, no politics, no, yeah.
we just cared about each other because of the
Well,
letters.
that's what I've found. So I had a piece in my last special, the Happy Camper Tour, where I talk about like the internet isn't real. And I just say like people on the internet are different than they are in real life. And what I found is when you go online, like it can be like a dumpster fire. Like you're like the world's so divided, we hate each other, there's so much negativity. But I will tell you, like I go to these shows and like I tour around for a living. Like every weekend I'm somewhere new doing shows, every Friday, Saturday. And you're meeting hundreds of people. And I've never, like, everyone gets along and everyone is so much more alike than we think. And we're not that different. And even
Right.
like, you can't tell, you're not like, oh, these are conservatives and these are liberals or these are religious and these are atheist. Like, everyone comes together as one. And it's not until you find those divisive tacks that start separating people.
Right. And you just told my whole story, the second half of my story. Like, this is what happened next with this. And this is what I found out is what you just said
Yeah.
through this. And again, I
Because
just
this
kind of went,
is in reference to the people who don't know, this is about your book, Dear Dana, I'm guessing. Is that
yeah,
so? You're just to give people a bit of backstory. So, Dear Dana, it's a book that you wrote, and it's the caption is the time I handwrote a letter to all 580 of my Facebook friends.
yeah. And that's the next step in the story. I went nuts jobs because I sat back after about 7 or 8 months of writing back and forth with Dana and having
Right.
this profound experience where I started to look at everything differently because of these letters. And then it was subtle. I mean, it wasn't like I changed my religion and, marched off into it wasn't like that. But
Right.
it was a shift. And I was like, if this one girl on this list of hundreds of people who I've known to differing degrees, there's this one girl who is like open my eyes to all this stuff. Like, what about the other people? What other untapped goodness for me is on this list? And I was like, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to write everyone a handwritten letter. And I really, Alex, I did not think I was going to finish. I didn't think I did like get a journal and I made rules, but that's how my brain works. And I bought stationery and I was taking
Yeah.
myself seriously. But the thought at the beginning of that I was going to write 600 letters would have been ridiculous
I
and
think
overwhelming.
that's most tasks, right? Like when you
Right,
look at the end goal, it's like this is so far, but then if you break it down brick by brick, right? You're like,
right.
okay, this week I'm gonna write one person a letter on
Well,
Sunday
that's
or
right.
something.
And that's what I did. And so it took me, but once I got past like letter 30, I was like, wait a second. This could change everything. I mean, this could be the greatest journey I ever go on as a human being. So then I couldn't stop. At some point, it was kind of the same drive with Dana. And then people were expecting the letters towards the end, but it took me 18 months and I wrote 580 handwritten letters. And now I cannot shut up about it because it is so off the chain, powerful. And it really does this little overlooked, hiding in plain sight tool in our toolkits really can spread the hope and cut the divisiveness because it's kind of what you said about going to your shows.
Right,
Once I reached out to each of those people individually, like screw all the rest of it. I'm
right.
connected to this real person living a messy, beautiful life for a real reason. And who cares about the rest of it? And we're all basically the same. We're all just trying to get to tomorrow.
Yes, I really love that message. There's that quote that they say where they're like, one day you realize that like every person out there is as unique and individual as you are.
That's it.
Right? And you're like, everyone is just trying to like, they're doing their best. Like we're just trying to get through and just trying to get by. I really like that quote of there's one where they say, in your 20s, you're worried about what everyone is thinking about you. In your 40s, you no longer care what people think about you. Then it says in your 60s, it's like you realize no one was even thinking about you in the first place.
Oh, that's
Like,
beautiful.
and
Yeah.
it's like, yeah, just I found that very interesting. You're like, oh yeah, like no one's worried about what, like there's everyone's so entangled in their own lives, and it's like,
and
It
what they want. And what I didn't realize, because writing a letter or a note and then sending it to someone, it makes you vulnerable.
right.
The letter writing helps because you're dropping it somewhere and you don't know what happened. They may never read, so it takes you off the hook. But what people like, I was like, what are people going to think of this? This is like
I
stupid.
got
What are they going to think? And
yeah, I got
they
two
over and over,
questions.
yeah, over and over again, people just want to feel connected. People want to feel hope. I'm just saying that you're right. Everybody's on these entangled lives.
No,
They're
I
not thinking about you. But if you give them a lifeline, oh my God, Alex, they will hold on for dear life.
I think well that's the more you look I think connection is one of the most important things in to our psyche, and to our spirit, and
100%.
it I notice it big time, like at the shows. It's the one time where I do feel connected. That's why I always say what I love about comedy is it's the one time I feel understood. Like I get to go on stage and I get to talk about what I want to talk about for an hour, and people are laughing, and you're like, oh, they get it. They understand my feelings, and then you feel
Right.
connected to them. And the one thing that I always liked about comedy too, I say, is that like it's the only time that I know that people want me around because I'm like, these people paid money to be
Right.
here. So they obviously
Right.
want you around. Is where like other times I find a big part of my life is I'm like, I'm just trying to stay out of people's way. Like quite often I'm just like, don't get in anyone's way. Just go throughout your day and don't be a hindrance to anyone. But inversely to like what you're saying with the writing the letters, it's almost like you're not in people's way. They would be happy for you to but
Right. It's
chime
we
in.
share that personality trait, and I've never really thought about that, but I guess the letter writing was like made for me to be successful, like in the writing letters. The letters, I wasn't successful, but I was successful in completing the project because I do not want to intrude. So it's non-intrusive. So it's almost tailor-made for me because I share that with you. I don't want to get in the way of anyone. I want everyone to do what it is. I don't want, we share that like on a deep level, I think. And that's why the letters work for me because that would be the way I'd go about it if I could. Like
Yeah.
drop, 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 but I'm not actually here.
Yeah, you're like, here's if you want it, it's here, but don't worry about it. Yeah.
Right. If
What is
not,
what was the content of the letters? Was it unique to the people, or did you come up with a template eventually where you're like, hey, here's who I am, here's what I'm doing. I would love to chat,
well,
or
every letter was personalized and it was 2 pages, but the intro was always the same. Like, I'm doing this, I'm writing every single one of you because Dana and Parker. And just tell
right,
like the story in 2 sentences, just to give it context. And
right,
then then I had this page and a half, and I came up with kind of a formula because just as an ends to a mean, because what are you going to say? And so I would go on their Facebook profile, and this turned out to be just an exercise in wonderfulness because I'd go look at your profile and be like, Alex, we went to high school together. What's he doing? And
right,
though I kind of knew that you were a stand-up comedian, the way social media works, and there's hundreds of people, you don't have everyone sorted out in your head right, and you've got a glimpse. And though a Facebook profile can't, give us a true life story, then I'm like, oh, Alex, he's doing the stand-up comedy, and then maybe I go listen to some of your stuff. I go look at your website. I go
right,
see the RV, and I'd be like, wait, this is awesome. And then I'd be like, let's say you lost your grandmother, and so I'd have something to say right away. You're a badass. This is fun. I like the RV and the dog. I like
right,
all of it, and I'm sorry about your grandmother. I learned over and over again. You could say all that stuff, and you were never
right,
too late to say the things that you cared about somebody that had happened in their life. And so
right.
now I'm seeing the person as a person, and I'm not. And before maybe I knew you voted this way or this way. I'm caring less and less about that because it's not the point anymore. So that's
Right.
part of the process. But then wait, I have more space on the back end of this page. And really the best part, other than seeing you were living this real life that it was as real as mine, that was all over the place, and you were a rock star in your own way, that we were all rock stars in our own way. It
Right.
was like, wait a second, like Alex, what does he mean to me? And again, I'm not a great person. This is because I was trying to fill the last page. Like, so I would think back to high school and I'd be like, Alex, like we had so much fun and we thought we were hilarious. And but then Alex, when my grandmother died, you came and talked to me by the payphone like, we're gonna be cool. I'm gonna go with your mom, and you helped me in that moment. And so I get to say, hey, Alex, you probably totally forgot about this, but thank
Right.
you for doing that because that made a difference. And so, how is that going to make you feel? Well, you're going to feel good, but I'm going to feel even better because I got to say it.
Right. And I really like the key thing I took away from that is that it's never too late. Like I really like that
Oh yeah.
framing because we think of I notice it where I'm trying to think, even just like a social media post quite often. Like so, like my dog, I had to put my dog down last month and it was very sad. It was like it was the
Sorry
worst
about
thing I've
that.
ever been through in my life. Yeah. To show you how privileged a life I've had. The worst thing was losing my dog. But anyway, I love them. And I wanted like you're like, oh, I should do something to memorialize them, and I got to make a post or something. And I was like, he doesn't have Facebook, so why am I making a post? And it took a long time. And then I finally did one yesterday. But it's like it's never too late. Like I could have done it next year. I could have done it, like you don't. We think that there's this expectation of we have to do it at the time. I
Right.
notice that with my comedy. Like a lot of the time, I will do shows, and if I get behind, because I always try and write like a thank you post, like here's some photos from the show in the town, here's some pictures from around the town, and be like, oh, Houston, thank you for having me. It was an amazing time, and you people were great, and like I try and do that, but sometimes I get behind on it, and then I'm like, it's too late to post now. The show was last month. But really, I'm like, I don't think they care. Like if
No,
they
it's not too late. And that was my experience. I sat down over and over again and thought, this girl lost her mother 3 years ago, and you never
Right.
wrote it at the time, but now you're going to put it in this crazy letter. I wrote a girl who had been in the Twin Towers on 911, and I wrote her letter 15 years after
Right.
911.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
and but it's still that's what I learned over and over again because people responded and they were like, "Thank you for remembering my mother. Thank you for remembering I went
Right.
through something." And over, like hundreds of times, I realized that it's never too late to post an appreciation post. It's never too late to say congratulations. It's never too
Right.
late to do any of those things because it's just a human need. And I think there's something, and Dana speaks to this, there's powerful about being after the fact because she said that the stuff they got condolences about Parker like 2 years on were more powerful when they were getting them all at the very beginning. There was something about someone still remembering that they were in pain.
Right. Yeah, it's like the name living on, almost like Mexico, the Dios de los Muertos, right? Like,
Right, right. And that's
yeah.
exactly it. It's like if someone remembers your dog in a year, I mean,
Right.
I know it's going to mean a lot this month and in 2 months,
Of
but
course.
there's something about and so it is never too late. That's one of the major takeaways of writing all those letters.
Yeah, I saw a really good thing on um regret. Have you ever heard of Daniel Pink?
Hmm.
Yeah, so he's got that book where he like studied 16,000 people's regrets.
Yeah, and I haven't read that, but I need to. Have
Oh,
you read
dude,
it?
no, I've just listened to the audiobook and then like some podcasts on it. So I guess you could say right anyway, yeah. But it like he has a really good recap of it. I can try to find it for you and send it to you after a link, but it's like just a 10-minute speech of him talking about it, but the things he learned. Um, but all regrets fall into one of four core categories. And he looks at regret differently. It's how I do my journaling now. I journal all the time and I start with my regrets. And because he says, if you tell me what you regret, I'll tell you what you value. And so it's a really good compass,
Oh
right?
yeah.
For our like morals and our values. It's like, oh, what do you regret? You're like, well, obviously then you value that thing. So then now you can try and move forward with knowing your values. So like one of them, the first major regret was he called it foundation regrets. So he said these are small little things that over a long period of time led you to somewhere you didn't want to be. So it would often be like, eating bad food and then you end up, overweight and sick, or smoking cigarettes and then now you end up with lung cancer 10 or 20 years later, or spending your money and then eventually you don't aren't able to live a comfortable retirement. And so it's like these little things that led you to a place you didn't want to be over a long period of time. And he said that shows that we all want some sort of stable foundation. We want to have, a foundation. Number two, and he said this one's huge. It was called boldness regrets. So it was basically that you had a chance in your life to take a chance. You could have played it safe or took a chance. So, and you played it safe and now you regret it. So it's like you didn't ask that crush out on a date. You didn't start that business. You didn't take that trip. And now you look back and you regret it. So it shows like everyone, we want a chance to, like take a risk and do these things. Um, the third one, and this one he says very, it's moral regrets. So people were put in a position to do the right thing or the wrong thing. They did the wrong thing and now they regret it. And he says it's very good how he words it. It shows that people want to do the right thing. Like generally we do. Like we really want to be good and do the right thing, but sometimes, we make those mistakes and do the wrong thing. Then the last one, which I think really fits in your category of what you're doing, is connection regrets. So he said another big one, the final one is like connection regrets. So generally, you have a relationship that fell apart. Doesn't have to be intimate. It could be a friend, a family member, whoever. And he said usually it happens over drifts, like it starts off small and then eventually you're at this place where you're not talking anymore and you've thought about reaching out, but you don't because you think it'll be awkward. And then eventually it becomes too late. And now you regret it because you never got to reach out to them. And his advice on that is always reach out. He says, always reach out. He goes, because take the information. He goes, flip it around. He goes, how would you feel if that person reached out to you right now?
Right.
And they're always like, oh, I'd feel amazing. I'd be so happy. It'd be
Yeah.
awesome. And he's like, yeah, duh, like extrapolate from that, like,
And
and
that's
so,
and you're right, that's my whole story. And just to, there was a couple people names in the box who passed away during the 18 months. And
right,
those were the people I always think of those people. There's like five of them, and I always think about them that I never got to write them a letter, but then it also makes me realize that, oh my God, I'm so excited about the 580 I got to write because those weren't,
right.
and I've never framed that in regrets. I love all of that, every single bit of it.
Yeah. What was, what was the most common response? Were there any responses that came back that really stood out?
Oh yeah, there was a bunch. I mean, my response rate was like 75%.
Oh,
I like
really?
the
That's still pretty good, though. I
No, it's
guess
great. I mean, it's
that
really good. And
that's
I
really
came
good.
Yeah, I really think those 25% of the people who didn't respond, or whatever the exact number is, it didn't mean the letters didn't mean anything to them. It meant they didn't respond because that's not how they reacted. And since a letter is non-intrusive and doesn't ask for anything, those are almost the best gift because
Right,
they with and I did another big takeaway was I don't need a response to realize I made a difference in life, not in letter writing.
right.
And we're kind of engineered that way to wait. But there were so many good responses. One girl said, I was going to handwrite you, and now I'm going to have to buy aspirin cream to rub on my hands because my hands hurt so bad after doing it.
Yeah.
And then there was a guy this guy actually died after we exchanged. He died suddenly, and he said, we had sat next to each other at high school graduation. He said, "Okay, I'm going to go write a letter to the girl on the other side of me now. Now we're complete in our row from high school graduation. Like we've all written each other. Maybe you write her, she writes you, and now
Yeah,
we've
yeah.
all written each other from row seven, 1986 graduation. I thought that was hilarious,
Oh, that's great. Yeah,
but
yeah.
then there were things where, I mean, obvious stuff where, but it was, to me, it was meaningful where I I wrote to a girl who was like literally had like a professional photographer taking pictures of her on a yacht, and she was beautiful and she was drinking champagne. I'm like, oh my God, my life is a shit show. This girl has got it all figured out. And so I
Right,
write her. I mean, I wrote her a nice letter, and she wrote me back and said, oh my God, I have been really wanting someone to reach out to me. I just got diagnosed with um, bipolar disorder, and I just need somebody to be connected to. And
right.
here I am thinking this girl is literally living the dream. I'm in the crapper over here, and it turns out
Yeah,
that maybe it's the other way around. And then there was a letter where I was kind of intimidated by a girl, and because she seemed to be perfect when we were growing up, and
right,
she wrote me back very honestly and said, I just loved your letter because I didn't think you liked me. And she didn't think I liked her because I was intimidated by her. So it was just life lesson
right.
after life lesson after life lesson, but there was as much fun as there was meaning. And really the thing that's just the most heartwarming is I reconnected with each of these people, these amazing human beings. And though I could not keep all those doors open, I walked away feeling guilty. Whenever I see those people now, it's a different level of relationship.
That's what I was gonna say. What were your relationships like with them after the letter? Like,
Well, a perfect example of how it changed. Again, a subtle shift. My father passed away suddenly. Um, it was
sorry to hear
after the
that.
letters, after the letters, and at his hospital bed and at his memorial service, my brother and sister were like, "Here come the letter people," because people came in
Wow.
droves who got the letter. They're like, "You and your little letters. We got to get another tent for Dad's service
It-
now because you and your little letters." And those
yeah.
people. Then I felt like our embrace was different, like physically, and I felt like, but their commitment to show up, my commitment to show up to them. And I always said the whole time I did, I'm going to get off Facebook when this is over. Well, no, I'm not, because the OG 580, those people who I wrote letters to, I want to stay connected to them for the rest of my life.
Right. You know, that's what I always picture. Like, I I want to have a time where I get to be with all the people I love, And as you get older, it's so much harder to coordinate being
Mm-hmm.
like getting out with people. And I always thought of a funny premise for it. Like, it's like, I think the only way I could get all my friends into the same room is if I fake my death.
Right,
Like, that's like I'm gonna have to fake die and plan a
right.
funeral to get all my friends to show up. And I'm
And then
like,
you can
what does that
pop
say
out.
about me? They're all like, okay, we'll all get together as long as Alex isn't talking. We'll come and hang out because that guy never shuts up.
Right. But that's human nature, though. I think we all share that. I think we
Right,
all share you know, the, it's, yeah, another common response was, I can't believe I waited so long to respond. It's just human nature. I mean, it's just the humanness in us that we have, the intention of connecting and being together, but we just don't. It's like you said, the regret of connection. We don't follow through on the little voice saying, "Hey, check in on Alex. Hey, check in
right.
on Leslie," or whoever
Well,
it is.
there's those good studies on sending out those like gratitude messages people talk
Right.
about, right? Where it's like it's supposed to like you just send someone a random kind of like exactly what you did, but not as intimate way, I guess, right? Where they're
Right.
just
And
like,
it,
oh, you just text someone and
right.
it's supposed to make your brain a lot happier.
Oh, it does. And mine was exponentially gratitude, because I was like, wait a second, I'm connected to all these real people for a real reason. They all fit into my life at the right time. And I'd never seen that perspective. And then moving forward, that gives us all hope. Like, wait, this all means something. And I think not the problem with, but the universe gave me this great story, and this is what gets me in the door because I'm the letter
Right.
writing lady. But the important thing about the practicality of note writing is, one, it doesn't have to be a letter. It can be two lines on a sticky note. It can be two lines in a card. It's the intentionality, it's the non-intrusiveness, it's the tactile part of it. And you don't have to do it 600 times. That's ridiculous. But again,
Right.
those are the parts that get me in the door. You
Did
know,
it Did it ever at a point feel disingenuous along the way? Like, because I know for myself, if I'm like doing it, like something I've struggled with in my life a lot of time, where I notice with comedy even is like, am I doing this for them or am I doing it for me? And then
right,
I found out like, oh, I'm doing it. I'm like I came up with a phrase like selfishly helping or something. I'm like, oh, I'm doing
right.
this for me, but it does help you. But then even trying to, if it's like writing a letter. I guess you looked up and found some info about them, so then you had something to write about.
Yeah, when I looked
But
at their Facebook profile and then
yeah, but
connected
did
with
it
that.
did it ever feel phony when you're like, because even me, I find it very hard. I know it was with my dog recently. So I always thought I was a very empathetic person. I'm like, I'm empathetic. I can understand people, and their stuff and that. And I had a lot of friends tell me that like they lost their dogs, and they've lost them. And I was always like, oh, that really sucks. Like I feel for you. But then, like, when it came to my dog dying, like, I cried. Like, I've never cried like
Right,
that. And I'm like, I
right,
did not feel this even close to this for somebody else. Like, I'm like, maybe I'm not that empathetic because I can't, but I don't think you should be. Because if you are, like, you're just gonna be crying all day long. If you
right,
truly can
right,
feel everyone's emotion. But, like, even there, when you recently said, like, oh, like, when my dad passed away, I can say like, oh, I'm very sorry to hear that, but I never know like how much are you supposed to put into that, you know?
right. I think
When you
all you can be as sincere as you can be, because we're all wired so differently. And unless I lost a dog, I mean the dog of a lifetime, like
right,
5 years ago. So I understand that, but it makes me think of Dana. Like, I have not lost a child, but I have walked life with her, and so I don't know what it's like to lose a child. And I also know I don't know what to say to someone except for it, that
yeah,
sucks. And I
yeah,
think that's
that's
the
what I
best thing you
mean.
can say when you haven't experienced, is like, that sucks. I bet that sucks. I'm so sorry. But that's all you can say,
Yeah,
because that's the truth. And it's a sincerity thing. And I think and watching her and her husband go through what they've been through, it's the people who not say too much, but say more than they know, that that's what gets you in trouble. And I think just staying in your lane is the best thing you can do, and
Right.
be honest. And and back to letters, I tried what I learned about myself was not to say too much personally when I didn't know that person as well, or I didn't really feel what I was saying. Like my words had to mean something. So I could
Right.
be sincere and I could say, I'm glad we were connected when we were kids. But if I didn't really remember why I was glad about it, I shouldn't say that, and
Right.
so I could pivot the letter another way. And so I think at the beginning I probably not felt disingenuous because I was doing it because I wanted to do it. I don't know that I
Yeah.
ever felt disingenuous. I felt exhausted. I
Yeah.
felt
Yeah.
like I had too many emotions from other people. It was too much. And the only time I felt disingenuous, I guess, was when I realized that there was no way I could say your friend in real life, Amy Daughters, but I couldn't be real life friends with 580 people, and that sounds
Mm,
stupid. But
right.
that's kind of what I was saying with a letter. So that's disingenuous. But what I realized was the act of the letter was still an act of kindness. The act of the letter still did what I guess I intended it to do, even though I wasn't super intentional about it. It had impact, but I couldn't be friends with all these people. So it was up to their friends to take care of them. And I couldn't do that, you
Right.
know?
Yeah, yeah. You just, yeah, like we said, it's hard to get 10 people together in a room, let alone trying to maintain relationships with 580 people. Even if you
Right.
spent an hour a day talking to them, like like you'd have to get that would,
It's
like
impossible.
it would take you over a year to get talk to everyone once.
But I think the recipients got that though. They were human too. And they had
Right.
the same. And so I think they got the fact that I wasn't going to be their BFF. I think I put that on myself more than that. I had a friend tell me, I was like, I can't respond to every single one of these. She's like, stop. No one expects that but you. You're
Yeah.
expecting more than anyone else is expecting. Like, slow down. You're fine. You know?
Yeah. Well, a handwritten letter too feels so much more sincere, right? Like you just think of the time that someone would have had to put together and that they're thinking of you. It's almost like that, the book, The Five Love Languages,
Yep.
and they talk about gifts is one of them. And at a surface level, it sounds very shallow. You're like, oh, you like gifts, do you? Like,
Right.
oh, convenient, buy me stuff and you'll love me. Like,
Candlesticks. Yeah. That's
yeah.
the best.
But
Yeah.
but then the way that they explain it in the book is that the gift can be anything. It doesn't have any monetary value, but it's what the gift represents that you were thinking of the person when they were not there.
Right.
So it's like you were on a walk and you saw a nice shiny rock. So you picked up a rock and you're like, oh, Amy would love this. And then
Right.
you come home and you're like, hey, I saw this rock on my walk and I thought you'd like it. And you give it to them. And it's the idea of the gift is that you were thinking of them when they weren't there. And that's like
Right.
with the handwritten letter is it's
Right.
that someone was intentionally thinking of you,
Right.
when you were just out and about doing your day. And it
And
that
that's what I didn't get. And that's where the story that's the call to action, if there is one, is that when people got to their mailbox and they pulled the letter out, I did not understand what was going to happen. Even before they opened it, they held in their hand, they thought, oh my God, here's what she had to do to make this happen. She had to sit
right.
down, wait, envelopes, addresses,
I
handwriting.
know,
And
right?
even if I had written one line, it would have had the same impact. And I talk about this all the time. And this is really
Right.
where the hope gets spread. Is they're like, oh my God, I matter this much to another human being. I matter
Right.
this much for her to take 7 minutes of her time and spend 73 cents or whatever postage costs in Canada. We have the power, and they're like, oh my God, I matter to another person in this world. And that just blew people's mind because the number one response I got from those letters was this: I will save your letter in a special place for the rest of my life. Boom.
Right.
And I think other than cold hard cash, it's hard to
Yeah.
do better than this as a sincere, just an act of sincere kindness, and it does spread the hope. It does, 100%.
Big time. Oh, yeah, that's so sweet. I love that. And have you written, you got any plans to do any more letters to anyone in the future?
Well, I'm like
Do you
you.
still,
I start
go
every
ahead.
morning. That I'm a writer, and
Right.
but I start every morning because this was, and it makes me think of what you asked me earlier. Do you feel disingenuous? But now, after all those letters and the letters to Dana, it is almost a part of the fabric of who I am. And it's almost like an adrenaline. One, it's an adrenaline rush.
Yeah.
Two, it honors the story, but that's I wouldn't keep doing it because it honored the story, frankly. I
Right.
mean, but it is my chance every day to spread hope. So I sit down every morning, and that's the first thing I do is I write someone, and it's not a letter, it's a card. It's six
Yeah.
lines, 3 lines, or 12 lines, but I keep a journal next to my a handwritten journal next to my computer, and it's like I see stuff like Alex lost his dog.
Right.
Alex got a new RV. Alex
Right.
did whatever. And it takes me 7 to 10 minutes. And it takes longer probably to find Alex's address than anything else, but because she's moving
Yeah.
around, like I don't know where I'm going to send it to your mother, maybe. But
Yeah.
and then I do that, and I'm like, dear Alex, it's as simple as this, dear Alex. I'm so sorry to hear about your dog. I lost my dog Sam 5 years ago, and I still talk to him in the house like I'm insane. And I
Yeah.
will not spend one day, his little dolls are next to my bed. I will not spend one day the rest of my life missing him. And I know it sucks. I'm so sorry. Love, Amy. That's all I have to do. Put it
Yeah.
in the mail. But that's how I start every single day. Because you know what? That's the best version of me there will ever be is that wonderful, messed up, hot, skinny girl writing letters and notes.
Yeah. Oh, that's very beautiful. Thank you for sharing that story. I really like that. And then now you've wrote a second book,
Yeah,
right?
I have two books, right? And
Right. Or was the
the
other
first
one first?
the other one was first, and it's
Right.
right, and
And I like that one. So that one was, what is it? You can't mess this up. And
right,
then it was called A True Story That Never Happened.
right, and that
And
one's
I'm interested
yeah.
in that because it sounds like there's a really good Mark Twain. So Mark
Hmm.
Twain has a really good quote, and I'm gonna butcher the quote, but it's basically that he's like, I've been through some really horrific things in my lifetime, some of which that have actually happened.
That's a great quote.
And it's like, oh, because we do, like, we visualize that these terrible things are gonna happen, or, you're like, we cause ourselves so much pain and suffering. And it's like, it never even happened. It didn't even come true. Like all your worries that you had.
Right, right.
So
Yeah, no, it's back to what you said at the beginning, though. About the worry. I think maybe it was before we started the
it was,
recording.
yeah.
Yeah, but yeah. The first book is about memories and it's humorous, but it's basically a memoir, kind of my childhood, wrapped up in the tortilla of uh, time travel. So I write myself back in time to 1978,
Yeah.
and I'm like the adult version of myself, but they think I'm a distant cousin. I get dropped off at my childhood home, and it's Thanksgiving, and they're like, the time travel guide says, you go in there for 36 hours and deal with it and come back out at the end. And so I think, as the person writing the book, it was always my idea to write a funny back in time book because I like nostalgia. I like, you know,
Right.
going back. I'd rather go back than go forward.
I
And
know
so I'm like, this is,
nostalgia does seem so fun, right? Like whenever you see like just an old I saw like a commercial or something where it was like people in an old car driving into like an A&W or something,
yeah, oh,
and you're
yeah.
like, "Oh man, the
It brings something
days."
back. It's an emotional experience. It's very like energy, high energy, and it makes you feel good in a way that
You know what I think it is about nostalgia? I think that what it is that when you see, I think photos do this very well. I think photos capture a moment. And I think that moments, like they always talk about, like you got to be present to be happy. Like if you're in the future, you have anxiety. If you're in the past, you're depression. The moment, like the present is the only thing that's true. And I think that photographs capture a moment better than anything because what happens, like, I mean, this is a little different because we're on Zoom, but if you took a photo of us right now
right.
and then in 10 years look back at it, you would just look at the moment. You'd be like, oh, remember we had that great conversation. It was so fun connecting with this other person and we just had a great time because in the photo, just like nostalgia, when you look back, you don't remember any of the little worries. Like all that
Oh,
shit
you're right.
melts away, right? So like You
It's
don't remember
airbrushed
that you don't
almost.
remember that in 10 days it's the first of the month and you've got another mortgage payment coming out and you're actually $500 short on that. And then, your kid actually was sick and has to go to the hospital and get, some testing done and you're very worried about that. And you and your husband had a fight because of whatever. Like all of those little stressors are gone and you just see the moment. And that's what I think nostalgia does. So like when you see those people pulling into the A&W, you just see two people in a classic car going on a date to have a cheeseburger. And you're like,
Right.
oh, it seems so simple. But then you don't think of like, oh, I bet you that guy's dad is so mad at him because he stole the car. And
Right.
then, that girl is like cheating on her boyfriend with this guy and she's nervous that she's going to get caught, that she's out with this guy. Like, or something, like
Because it's a moment, not the whole day. It's not the whole,
exactly. You
and
don't see
it's not a three-dimensional photo.
right.
You don't see all the rest. There's no context.
Exactly. So you just see the simplicity of it. I think if you can see that in life, like that's one of those walking meditations they tell you to do, right? Like when you're walking, they say just try and describe something very vivid. So you're like walking, you're like, okay, there's a tree to the left of me. It is 16 feet tall and it has one, two, three, 8 branches, and each branch and you just do that. It puts your mind like present
Right. Right.
and
No, and that's why we look back and say, oh, it was so much simpler then, because
and I don't
we
think it
take it out of
was.
context. Because
Right.
human relations are never uh it was never simpler because it's always the same set of variables like you just said. Our real life is those things, those elements that what we're really experiencing.
Yeah. You know what, a thing that I'm trying to write. So I always close my comedy shows with a heartfelt speech. So I'm always trying to write. I've done two now, and I'm writing a new one. And one of the things I want to talk about is that I think that life is simple, but it's not easy. And it was Joseph Goldstein talked about it with meditation, where it's like it's simple but not easy. And I think that goes over into everything in life.
Hmm.
Like I really do. It's very, very simple, but it's not easy. Like, if you want to have better relationships, it's like handwrite people letters, reach
Right.
out. That's a very simple, like just reach out. But it's
But it's
like,
not
but it's not
easy.
easy to do. And then
No,
same
it's
with
not.
like if you want to lose weight, it's like stop eating. Like if you stop eating, you will lose weight. But it's like that's not easy. Like it's very
Right.
simple, but not easy. And I really think that that sums up the human experience. Like very simple, but not easy. Right?
Yeah, that's bordering profound right there.
I
So,
know. Yeah. I'm just trying to think of like other things because I'm gonna try word that into me having to put my dog down. Like it was very simple. Like I'm like, you just gotta phone the place and they'll come to your house and put him down. Like that's what you have to do. But it was not easy. Like it was the hardest thing I've ever done. It's a very
right.
simple, but yeah, not easy.
It makes you look at that statement right there, makes you look at the whole rest of your life and think, oh my God, that's true. That's what we're living.
Yeah, I know. All the time. Like I think of like, oh, you want to become a better comedian? It's like write more jokes and get
Right.
on stage more. And it's
No, and
like,
that's for me as a writer. I mean, writing isn't easy.
yeah,
It's pretty simple. Sit down at the desk and, start pumping words out, but that's not easy.
yeah. How much of your writing would you say actually gets used for something?
Um, uh, right now, because I'm doing this speaking, probably more because I just write so intentionally now. I have a project that I'm working on, but I've got these balls in the air. Like I've created, not I've created, but this whole thing, the letter writing, and I have something going on with the first book. It's created this not firestorm, but there's all these balls in there that I have to keep in there. And I find that I do a lot of ball tapping. And then so when I actually sit down to write, I feel like that stuff is usable because I don't do it as much. Like I don't have as much content as I would have like 2 years ago.
Right. Yeah, you're more pointed with what you're doing and it
Right.
has
And
a
then maybe
purpose.
somebody
So,
asked me for it, and that's the other thing. So,
right.
but what I want to do, it's funny because recently took my calendar because I do a lot of podcasts, I do a lot of speaking, and I'm like taking, like I'm gonna do podcast Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. I'm not gonna do it on Thursday, Friday because I don't even believe my own crap at some point.
Yeah,
And then I'm
yeah.
taking a week out of every month where I don't do any of it, so I
Right.
can write and I can reset. Because I'm never gonna go to whatever my next thing is. And I'm also not going to try to push that because I think that's wrong, but where I just am quiet. I'm like, okay, that's fine
Well,
to do.
that's where I find creativity comes from.
Right.
Like that's why people are like, "Oh, I have my best ideas in the shower." And I'm like, "You know why? It's because you
Or when
don't
you're
have this.
walking.
You don't have this
Yeah.
goddamn thing on you, you know? Like
Right.
it's
Right.
like that's the trick and it is that's why like I love going to the sauna and I love like swimming pools and I'm like, I think I just like putting my phone in a locker is what I like
Right.
doing. And then it's
Right.
just gone. But it came from I saw John Cleese do like a keynote speech one time and he talked about in order to create, you have to be bored. And he's like, set a timer for like an hour, go in your living room, sit on the floor, crisscross applesauce like you're a kid,
Right. Stare at the
and
ceiling and wonder what it looked like to flip everything upside down, you
exactly, and
know?
just play. And he's like, and just sit there and play with ideas. And he's like, that is how you create. And if you always have stuff coming in, like
Right.
you're never going to actually create. And that's what I'm trying to work on right now is like letting myself get bored and really watching cheap sources of dopamine. Like I was vaping and using nicotine pouches again for the like I started last summer, I guess, doing that. And it's enough that it disrupted my writing because
Mm.
normally in the morning I would like get up and I'd have a coffee and I'd start writing right away. And that was how I started every day. And I think that gave my brain my dopamine. Was like, oh, here's a
Right.
little reward for you doing your writing. And like, but then when I had that vape pen of the nicotine, like I'd wake up and I'm like, oh, and I just grab it and I'd like suck on it in bed. And then I'd be get a rush of dopamine. I'd be like, oh, I'm not gonna get up yet. You're like, I'll just lay here. And then I'd like start scrolling on my phone, and then like hitting the vape pen, and it was like it took away all my motivation
Right.
to do stuff.
That's super interesting how little things like that can compromise our,
That's what
what it is we're actually trying to do. Like we're shooting
yeah.
ourselves in the foot and we don't even see it,
Well,
you
that's what I
know?
always said with the vape pen. I laughed at it all the time. I'd be like, this little thing ruins my life. Like it's
Right.
just such a small, and you just get it over the counter for 20 bucks. And I'm like, it's like an adult pacifier. Like you just, and they're like,
And
ah, I
and
would just,
that's what the phone is though too. And I tell myself that all the
right,
time. you know and that's I got rid of my Apple Watch because I was like I want to know, like I need to know, but I don't need to know like that. I mean, like I can't do it, and I don't want to know how many steps I walked. I walk every day. Like I don't
right,
want somebody to tell me whether I was successful at not at my I do the same walk every day for 45 minutes, and it's the best thing I could do other than the writing for myself. But
right,
I don't want anybody to tell me that I did it wrong because I'm just
right.
doing the best I can, guys. What do you
Yeah,
want from me? you know
yeah,
Close your circles. You close your circles. I got a triangle. I'm gonna do what I want to over here. But yeah, and I think that we have to be on the lookout for those, things we can change, you know,
yeah.
that
Well,
what works for us.
I find one of the biggest things I learned in life as well was like, I don't need to do more. I just need to do less almost. It's like, it's not that I need to start doing certain things. I just need to stop doing other things.
Right.
You
It's
know, like
counterintuitive. Yeah.
my my ex pointed it out to me because I'm like I'm an addict. I've always like everything, you know, like I struggled with drugs and alcohol when I was younger. And then like doesn't matter like sports, video games, anything that you could get addicted to. I'm like 100%. Like let's do this
Right.
all day. And that's where I got lucky where I found comedy, where it's this thing I can get addicted to that does seem to have it seemed to fill so many boxes in my life in a positive way.
Right.
Um, but what was I saying about that? Oh yeah, my ex was like, I don't think you need to worry about like, you know, that you need to write more, or, like do more podcasting or create more content, or do this. She's like, I think you just need to like not drink and like not play so many video games, you know? And it's
Right.
like she's like, you're naturally a doer, like you're gonna do stuff. Like
Right.
if you cut those things out, it's not like you're gonna sit there. Like you're gonna end up doing more productive things because you
Right.
can't sit still. And that
Right.
once I learned that, it became, I was like, oh, it's so true. Like, just don't worry about adding more, just take stuff away.
Right. And I
Yeah.
think that, yeah, and for me, like being confident, like this is how I do things. Like I sit here and like get on my phone, circle my desk like 7 times, then, and then I'm ready to write. But
Yeah.
I wasn't trained to be a writer. So I was always looking for the right way to do it. And I was like, wait a second, the right way to do it is the way I do it for me,
Yes.
not for you. You know,
Exactly. Yeah.
that's the right way. And we can encourage each other, but there's no blueprint. We live life where there's supposed to be a blueprint now. There's no blueprint for any of this. In any aspect of our life, you have to do what you know you have to do and be good with it.
Yeah. Well, it's funny that you say do what you know you have to do. We generally know what we have to do.
Yeah.
It's just doing again, it's simple, not easy. Um, Before you get out of here, one thing I always like to ask people, just a random question on life is, and I don't know if something changed here, if maybe your book did it, but is there something that you used to believe to be true that you no longer do?
Wow. It's a great question.
I know
Y-
that's
Yeah. I think, that's tough. I don't know. I think
like
I
I
used, go
no,
ahead.
no, 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 go ahead. I was just going to give you time to think what, but because like one that I used to think, I used to always think that I needed social reform for me to be happy. Like when I was in my early 20s, I was like, the government needs to change. Everything in the world needs to change. I'm getting screwed. And then I found that nothing needed to change. I just had to change. Like
Right.
once, then I was like, no one said you had to work at this job. No one said you had to live in this house. No one said you had to do this. So I quit everything, found comedy, started living in this RV, driving around. And I'm like, man, the world has never been better. And I'm like,
Right.
nothing changed but the way that I'm navigating through it. So
Right.
it's like, is there
Right.
something that you used to believe? Yeah.
Well, I think I used to believe that the people I associate with had to believe the things that I was taught to believe growing up. We had to be on the same page. Like you and I had to not just believe that we were Methodists, but we had to believe in this specific thing of Methodism, or something bad was going to happen if I went outside of that norm. And my parents weren't even Methodists, so I didn't, but it was little things like this is what we have to believe and then I realized that my life is so much better when I connect with people who believe nothing that I believe. And there's
Right.
nothing to be feared in that at all. There's nothing to be feared. Like I'm not going to be like transported to the bad world because I talked to this person who like I think that I grew up in suburbia in Texas and the box was tight.
Right.
And I think that I believed that staying in that box was the way to have a fulfilled, happy life. And I think the opposite was actually true.
Right. Yeah. Going outside of it. Yeah. That's very insightful.
Yeah.
Awesome.
So,
Well, yeah, thank you so much for coming on the podcast today, Amy.
well, this
And
was great. Great.
oh, dude, it's so good. It was it was very divine timing that you reached out because I literally said to my assistant and some of my friends, I'm like, I want to start podcasting more. I'm like, it's lonely in the RV. I think the podcast is something that's missing. I want to have these like pointed discussions with people. And I was like, how do I get more podcast guests? And I found now a thing called Podmatch, which is great. If you're
Right.
looking for it, I don't know if you've heard of it, but it's called Podmatch, and it just like it's basically Tinder for podcasts.
Oh, wow.
People, you
That's
just put
exciting.
you just put your thing on there, and like whether you want to be a host or a guest, and
Right.
then it just matches you up, and you say yes or no,
Wow.
and then it just sets them up. So I actually have a second podcast today happening after this. And I'm like, but when you reached out, or it was your assistant, I think, emailed
Mm-hmm.
me,
Yeah.
was like, I literally was saying to my friend the day before that we need to
That's
do this.
crazy.
And then you emailed, and I was like, what are the odds? I was like,
Yeah.
man, the universe delivers.
Well, you need to keep doing it because I'll tell you, I do this a lot. And I love it when I walk away with a full page of notes where I learned something about
Oh,
my own topic, about my own self, that I'm going to be better moving forward and talking about what I talk about. So I appreciate that. You're good at doing it, so you need to keep doing it.
oh, thank you, Amy. That's very sweet of you. You're
The
very
truth.
inspiring. I really like the goals you're setting with the connection and stuff. I think that is something that I want. I have a couple people right now that are sick, that have sick family members, and I'm like in town for a little bit, and I'm like, I should reach out, but I'm like, I don't want to be a burden. I know they're already, like, yeah. But I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna make sure I go and do that today.
Yeah, that's where the note comes in. But I think the spreader of hope and the happiness cheerleader, it's a good combo. And the
Yeah.
universe has said yes.
Yes, I agree. Now, before you take off where can people find you? Where should people go if they want? Because you do keynote speaking as well, but also your books and stuff. Where is the best
Right.
place to get a hold of you?
Yeah, amydaughters.com is all my things. And the best part is my mailing address is on there. So if anyone wants to write me a letter, I will 100% write you back, and I cannot wait.
Oh
to
yeah.
respond to your letter in kind. So thank you.
Oh, awesome. Okay, well, thank you so much for coming on the air, and we'll chat soon.